What blocks intuition for us? This stream of knowledge that's always available to us, the signal within the noise of everyday life, within the cacophony. What is the cacophony that is constantly besetting us from outside and from inside? One of the main sources of the cacophony from inside, which I think is reflected in the noise of the outside world, is doubt. And doubt is the seed source on a mental level of all the trouble that exists in the world. Its basis in the Western tradition starts with Adam and Eve's presence in the Garden of Eden, and the one mind, the all, is speaking to the couple and mentions that they need to listen to that one voice, only that one voice, and they have everything they need. They have no death, eternal happiness, no disease, constant bliss. Everything is available to them. And entered into this serene setting of this garden comes a serpent. And the serpent whispers to Eve and says, look, you can become as God, that you have this capacity within yourself and you don't need to listen to this one voice. Where Adam was, of course, is another matter, because I think he was sleeping in the corner while she was having this conversation, and he introduced a second voice, and that second voice is the voice of doubt. And if you look up the etymology of the word doubt, you'll see that it means two. So two here means doubt. The entrance of the second voice, he whispered into her ear another possibility. So there was what was created in psychology is called a cognitive dissonance, listening to two messages at the same time. Well, now she's thrown into a certain state of anxiety because we might call it existential angst. What do I do? The one voice is telling me I have this. The second voice is telling me I can have that, and I can become as God, and I don't need to count on the one voice. I can have that for myself. And so the entrance of doubt is a constant presence in our everyday life, and you and I are constantly aware of the entrance of the doubt. So when the messages come, the intuitive voice comes, and I ask myself, in fact, even what to do in this circumstance, or a message comes to me that I haven't asked about, but some revelation comes to me, and there's an action that's asked of me and given me and prompted me to take, suddenly a voice comes and says, in the future talk mode, yes, but if you do this, then this may happen. If you act this way, then he is not going to like you, or she is not going to like you, and you start to see and experience the if-then phraseology come into your thought process. And now you're in the conclusionary state of thinking, and you've dispelled the intuition, and through the doubt, your activities become stilted. They become paralyzed. Your movement is suddenly stopped, and you can't take the action and that's necessary that the doubt is prompting you toward, which is to do something or not do something in a certain instance, but you're stopped. And that is also experienced mentally as indecision and this ambivalence, the unwillingness to take a step. And then we find that the bodily response in doubt becomes a stagnation of energy in our everyday life flows of the energy sources in our body. And that is then develops into a form that becomes what we might call, and is termed in the medical profession, disease. What we're saying is that the ailments that come out of this source, we understand it to be the body in doubt. So doubt is happening mentally, emotionally, physically, socially, and morally, because doubt is essentially bearing a false terminology to us, telling us something that isn't true. So the statement that the serpent was making was based on the truth from the serpent's point of view, but ends up in the long run being a falsehood for us operating as human beings here in the world, because it hasn't materialized for us that we've become the source that we were promised to become. The doubt becomes the seed source of all the trouble and is a basic feature of speaking into the future, projecting into the time, space, and circumstance that doesn't exist, and attaching ourselves to that time frame, which is illusional, essentially a mirage for our existence, and of course doesn't come to pass. This is a fundamental spiritual point on which the Western tradition's understanding about how we exist in this world. What it evolves into eventually is the cardinal mistake made by us as human beings in the world from the spiritual point of view, is that we are going here to usurp the knowledge and power of the source, and that we will overthrow that source and become ourselves God. And you and I are Adam and Eve. And so we're all living out this archetypal, this ancient legend and foundational truth of the Western spiritual tradition.